A very warm welcome to this session where we're considering preparing for our first assessment, so our group presentation. So this is to help you consider sort of aspects which might put you in a stronger position in this piece of work. Okay, so let's just go back to what this is. So assessment one is looking at, it's a group presentation. So it's your first assessment, your formative assessment. So it's worth 30% of the total marks, and you're going to do a group poster presentation. So there's no word count because it's about timings. So in terms of timings, you've got 15 minutes to present and deliver your presentation. Okay, so 15 minutes in groups of 4. So you're going to be uploading a link to your video presentation, which we will then access the link to watch it and mark it, and you're submitting that link on Moodle. So we'll be giving you feedback afterwards on Moodle, written feedback about your performance. So as it's a group poster presentation, you will be in groups of 4, that you will already be aware of who your group of 4 is. And if you're not, you must contact me as soon as possible to make sure that that's in place. Let's just consider what the learning outcomes are. So this is very much about considering marketing theories. We're doing that and we're applying them to an organisation that you'll have chosen and looking at their marketplace. So looking at their current marketplace. We're critically assessing their environment. So we're looking at what's going on externally, internally, and looking at their marketing strategies to evaluate how they've made decision making. So how they've made decisions, particularly in light of their marketing. So for a little bit more information about what we're doing on this, let's consider, so we've got a group of 4 and we're doing a poster presentation. Okay, so the poster presentation you're going to record on video, and we are asking that we see your faces as well. So not just your PowerPoint, your slide, your presentation, but we want to see you. And that's important because we're assessing your professionalism. So how do you deliver? What's your body language like? In addition to your tone of voice. So you could do it in the way of recording it separately and then bringing it all together to create the 15 minutes, or you could do it in the same environment. Obviously be aware of whatever the social distancing sort of stipulations are at the time, so just make sure that you're protecting yourself in terms of how you're going to go about doing this. So you may come together, or you can do it separately and then dovetail and bring it all together through some video editing. So you've got 15 minutes for that presentation, then you've got up to another 5 minutes to record your answers to 3 questions. Now the 3 questions are written down here, so you already know what they are. So you're going to have to think about how you're going to divide those up between the 4 of you. So first of all, once you've critiqued and answered the sort of question in terms of the key benefits of data analytics in the organisation you've chosen, you're then going to assess, do you feel they've missed any marketing opportunities after the analysis you've done? You're going to try and see what their marketing strategy is, and then you'll be able to see, is their current strategy going to need to change for the year ahead? That's question 2. And then finally, is there one other market segment, so you're going to consider how to define segments, that you feel they should go after, and then you'll justify your response to that. So actually, is there one that they're missing out on? Is there one that they could expand their activities to cover? So you can select any organisation of your choice for the poster presentation. So it could be one that operates online and offline, or it could be a pure online one if you wanted. You may consider using one that you could then use in your second assignment. So you may choose an organisation that operates in the FTSE 100 or the FTSE 250. You can choose any area that you feel fit in terms of sort of any industry that you like, but you need to be considering how they can enhance customer experience, how efficient they are, market trends, customer preferences. So we're looking at what's going on in the market they're operating in. You should be reviewing their current market strategy. You're analysing it, how it's been delivered and how it's been received, and how people are responding to their marketing communications and campaigns. Okay, so we've got a deadline of the 23rd of April, so this week at midday. Um, Make sure that you try and submit in advance just to make sure if there are any technical problems, you've got the time to sort them out. So we've got up to 20 minutes in total because we've got our 5-minute presentation plus our 5-minute question time. So you need to do that as one recording. You're going to be submitting it once for your group of 4. And your poster presentation, as said before, is critically evaluate the key benefits of data analysis in a selected business. So on the video, you're sharing your poster, but like myself, and I'm using Screencast-O-Matic and it's free to use, I'm also able to share the slides and have a little video with myself on as well. So you can see me presenting as you can see the poster as well, or the slides. So we've got 4 marking criteria, and you need to consider that you are meeting all 4 of these when you're presenting. So you need to make sure that through your poster and through your spoken elements that you're demonstrating knowledge and understanding of the subject we're looking at. We also need higher level thinking skills. So this is cognitive skills and originality. So that can come through in terms of the way that you're demonstrating your poster and you're creating it, but also in terms of the processing that you're going through. So you're not just being descriptive, you're being analytical. We're also expecting to see advanced technical, professional and research expertise. So we want to see that you've done a significant amount of research, and actually then the way that you conduct it is in a professional way to demonstrate a real understanding of the selected organisation and their approach to data analytics. And then you'll have an individual, in terms of as a group, but your individual element of this in terms of how you personally present on this. So your written or oral communication, basically the poster plus the physical way in which you're presenting and we're seeing you on screen. So individually you're all contributing towards this and your presentation skills. Okay, so what I wanted to do was show you a previous, you may have seen these already on the course, but there's no harm in showing you things twice. So this was a poster presentation from a previous version of this module, so previous one held in York. So they had a different assessment brief. So their assessment brief was critically evaluate a marketing strategy. So obviously this time we're not doing that. We're critically evaluating instead. Let's just go through it. We're critically evaluating the key benefits of data analytics for our business. But this, so we're looking at something where they've got a different brief. So you wouldn't do a similar poster in the sense of the contents on it. So we're evaluating their current market strategy, and we've got the same marking criteria. And I just want to go back with the marking criteria, the 4 elements that I mentioned. Each of those are worth 25%, so they're equally weighted in terms of your the marks that you can get. So let's have a look at some previous ones and decide how we'd weight those. So we're looking at the poster itself, we're looking at subject knowledge and understanding, and just scanning through, they've got their market environment analysis, they've got a pestle, they haven't adapted it, they've done wording around applying it. I can't see in there, it's quite small, so I can't see any references directly in there. We'd expect to see references. They've got an introduction and company background, good. They've considered the target market, okay, and which one they've actually gone after. They've then looked at how the brand is positioned, the value offering. So they've got some good subject knowledge. They've considered the marketing mix in terms of their marketing strategy decisions. So their products, their communications, their pricing, their distribution. So that's your product, your place, your price and promotion. And then they've considered people, process and physical evidence. So that's the other 3 Ps if in a service-based marketing mix. We're looking at the direction they're going in and they're critiquing their strategy and then they're creating some recommendations. So good structure there, that's good. We're showing some knowledge. Can't see any references on there whatsoever, so that's a bit of a challenge in terms of professional skills. And obviously we can't see how they're presented because we're just looking at their poster. So in terms of subject to knowledge and understanding, we've seen some evidence there of that looks like it could be quite good. We'd be reading it in much more depth and watching the presentation, but in terms of really stepping up in the depth of their analysis, we'd have to be very careful in terms of what they're achieving there and checking that they've done that. Is there enough research in there? So in terms of advanced professional, technical or research expertise, we've got a little bit of data sales in terms of the supermarket sales in March, but actually, have we got much more data than that? It looks like that could be lacking, and we don't know how they presented. But just to give you an indication of what this scored, so this scored 60%, okay, in terms of meeting those criteria. So obviously this is just like a snapshot really, so we can't, but let's have a look at the, and you may have done this in a seminar in more depth. So on this occasion, we're looking at Toyota. So we've got quite a lot of background information there. So we're looking at actually what they do and what their background is, the 3 businesses they've got. So that's very descriptive. We're using a pestle for outside the business, what's going on around it. We're looking at specifically how they're responding, no references there. It seems quite general. Governments also favour fuel efficient products, so we've got that there. Yeah, that's okay, but where's the evidence to say that? Which governments, which countries are they operating in, which governments? We need to be more specific here. 5 forces analysis, very general. Fierce competitive rivalry, says who? Where? What's the evidence to support this? Be very, very careful in terms of stating things and not supporting it with research or demonstrating it with evidence. We have got lower down, if I can move my screen so you can see it, it's the screen share. Just bear with me. We've got their net revenues, so we can see how they've increased over time. We're looking at market share by brand, which one's Toyota, it's hard to see on here. But actually, is anything connecting to these tables? Are we actually learning what they mean? Is there interpretations? Because that's what we're really after. Segmentation and brand analysis. They consider a variety of factors, differentiated offerings, okay. More here. There should be much more here. How are they doing it? Are they creating avatars? I know for Aston Martin, they have different, they do create different avatars in terms of who they are targeting. They give the people names, they give them different geographies. The same with Jaguar Land Rover do that with their, particularly with their Jaguar brand. So they differentiate even between geographies as to different behavioural profiles. So we haven't got any evidence of this here. It's very general. Competitive analysis, okay, so this is looking at the global automotive market. Fierce competition, okay, but that's quite general. And so their competitive advantage is world-class products at lowest possible prices and the hybrid technology. Says who? How are they doing that? What evidence have we got of them doing it? Sorry, just let me go back. The marketing mix, we talk about the products there, and the service. We could talk about the marketing exchange here, what they're actually doing. The place, the way they're getting them out, and the pricing, how they're doing that. And then promotion, this could be more professionally laid out on a separate line. Recommendations, sorry, go back again. We're looking at how they're responding to different changes in the market, and then a conclusion. We have got some references. I think my video screen is on top of those. So there are a couple there, but we can't see any insight referencing. So in terms of how that compares to the one before, it's more general. And so because of that, it got a lower mark. So it got 54%. But you'll start to see, here some different sorts of examples. So let's move on to Dominos. Okay, they've even managed to do a literature review in this. They've looked at different models. They've chosen carefully which models they're using. And we see the frameworks. Frameworks, if you apply them, your knowledge of the company and your research, see here, they've applied them and then they've done critical analysis. That's very good. So even though we can't see the exact words, the layout gives the indication that actually this is looking pretty good. We've got a literature review, so we've looked at, so we wouldn't have to do that, but actually we've looked at which models that we're going to use, who says what. That looks slightly general, but they are introducing the key concepts they're using across here and in the body of it. And actually the whole of this is about applying frameworks. So they've got the 4 Ps of marketing, okay, otherwise known, it's better to call it the marketing mix, how they're doing it. We've got critical analysis of using the 4 Ps. We've got Porter's 5 forces, that's all about power, critical analysis of that. Segmentation, targeting and positioning, fantastic to see that. And how it can go from one end to the other actually, and again, critical evaluation. We're looking at their sales, so hopefully that will connect us somewhere else in the assignment. And we're looking at what recommendations they should have moving forwards. Just on the top, internal analysis, we've got a SWOT going on. In looking internally and externally at the organisation, and then we're looking at their offerings in terms of where they sit on the Boston Consulting Group matrix. So whether they're a cash cow, whether they've got dogs in there that they should get rid of, and again we're evaluating that. I like this. I think there's a lot of models that are used pretty well. Obviously, we're struggling to see the exact text. We won't know how it was presented, but it's highly informative, it's highly analytical, and so it does demonstrate subject knowledge and understanding. We are seeing higher cognitive skills and originality through the application. The use of images is very good. We're seeing some evidence of advanced technical, professional and research experience, and we can see how the written communication is demonstrated but not how it was verbally demonstrated. So we've got a good mark there of 70% because it's very comprehensive. Okay, now we've got Tesla. Okay, so let's go up and see what we've got in terms of that. So this is quite beautifully, I like the presentation on this. I think the presentation is better than any of the others that we're seeing. Let's have a look here at, so we've got the process that you go through in terms of creating a marketing strategy. And are they actually, this is good because they're signposting us in terms of what they're sharing here. So we've got the environmental analysis, they've done some of that. Okay, good. And this looks more sort of specific to Tesla, less generic. Again, might have been nice to see some references in here. We've got the so we've got the environmental analysis, we've got market segments. So I suppose this could have been slightly better if we'd have followed a path where we could actually see, because I'm then scanning around where's our segments. Okay, so they've got a good profile there, and they've done a positioning diagram, which is wonderful. So they've done a perceptual map there, but they've done it on quite basic things, price and quality. I do wonder with Tesla whether there'd be more important things on there in terms of not just price and quality, but actually in terms of adoption towards electric vehicles, because it might go for more. So actually, you might have more innovators taking it. So what are the things that they're looking for? It's not just going to be about price and quality. They might be looking for more, I don't know, sort of, it might have more to do with their behavioural attitudes towards eco. It might be more about, because they're also quite stylish products, their attitude towards sort of in terms of the aesthetics or the performance. So let's go back up here to there. So there's some really good bits, and there's some bits that could be done a bit better on here. We're looking at the value chain analysis, in other words, how they deliver value to customers. So we've got some good application there. And we've also looked at, so there you've got the power matrix. So we're looking at the sort of competitive, the landscape in terms of the Porter's 5 forces, but it's not labelled, and so because of that I was actually struggling to remember what it's called. So we need to be a little bit careful if we're using things that we're using them to the best way we can. We've got here the value proposition that people are buying, but there's potentially scope to make some recommendations or explain that a little bit more. We're talking about their strategic decisions. That's how they actually action their marketing mix. And we have looked at their brand. So that's where they're trying to look at their brand position and their value proposition. Yeah, here's the BCG matrix. So that is, the BCG is where they've got stars, cash cows, what else, dogs and question marks. It might have been good there. That's quite a visual, like it's not visual there, it's just written, but it is quite a visual model. So that might have been better to have a model there in terms of looking at it with some narrative, and then we've got a conclusion. But as I say, we're lacking a reference list. But overall, okay, so if we're looking again at the criteria that we're marking against, knowledge and application very high. We've got some good sort of demonstration of professional and technical skills here. I like the segmentation, I like the profile that we've built. I think that's very good and quite detailed. So we've got some really good contents here. I think very, very well presented as well. There is scope to make improvements, as I've said, for more labelling. And this scored a 70%. So like the previous one that we saw, that again was very good. It's very good in a different way. And equally, both share some very good content. Okay, so we've got some examples of a 50s, a 60, and a couple of 70s for you to look at. So when you're doing this presentation, you need to have 3 slides. The first one gives us your details in terms of the students in your group, the title, the company chosen, and your IDs. So we've got everything we need, just in case there's any short, just so we've got everything to hand. We then want to see your poster on slide 2, which is what I've just shown you. And then the reference list. No wonder I'm not seeing reference lists on slide 2 because they're coming on slide 3. However, what I'm not seeing on slide 2 is any insight referencing, so any actual referencing on the slides, and I would like to see some of that. Okay. So what I thought for this session would be helpful is to recap the marketing frameworks because they underpin how we're going to go about our sort of marketing analysis. And they're a really good way of structuring, and we've seen elements of these on these 2 posts and the 4 posters we've just seen. So we've got 4 potential frameworks. I would like you just to consider one as a way of critiquing the marketing activities. So all of these have in common where we are at the moment, some level of analysis. So Moustick's got a mission and audit, APIC has got analysis, and SOSTAC has got a situation analysis. So things that you could include in here are about the marketing exchange. So who is the exchange with? So in other words, like who's the end customer, who's the consumer, who's the purchaser, and what are they buying and what are they sacrificing in order to buy it? Okay, so that really gives a good understanding of what the transaction that's going on, the relationship that's building and the fundamentals for that. And then internal and external analysis. So by that, we can consider what are the internal motivations for the organisation. And this is where we're looking at the key benefits of data analytics, because if we understand, if the data is showing us internally what data have we got available, how does that guide our decision making? And if we go back to the Tesla one, I think there was sort of evidence here of some pretty good understanding in terms of like how they're fitting their market environment analysis. That's external because that's your pestle, but actually the BCG I think was used for internal analysis here. So we're looking at that. We're looking at what's driving the organisation. And then we're going to use models for external analysis, and they can be things like the BCG, pestle analysis, Porter's 5 forces. We can be looking, the Boston Consulting Group, where we're sitting in terms of our different offerings. So we need to start off by understanding the marketplace, and data analytics can support that, obviously, in terms of giving us a fantastically rich sort of outlook in terms of what's going on in our market. But what I want to do with this is I really want to focus on the marketing elements that I've taught you. So that's the sort of scope of the session that I'm running with you here. The next bit, so the objectives are going to be set internally by the organisation and maybe communicated externally in terms of their financial plan and their financial analysis. The next thing that we're going to consider is the strategy. And the strategy comprises of who are they going to go after. So that's like, and how are they going to profile customers? So their segmentation is the grouping process that they do to identify ideal customers. Then they decide based on which dimensions, sort of different profiles of people, which one they're going to target. So they're going to do that, and then they're going to position their offering in a certain way to make it attractive, and that's through the marketing mix, it's through their branding, and they can create a perceptual map. They can identify where do they fit on these dimensions to be attractive to that target audience. But the strategy is very much about identifying and targeting that audience at the outset. So that's where strategy links to some of the theory that we've covered. Tactics, we've seen in some of our previous in previous poster examples. Tactics is your marketing mix. Here we've got marketing strategy decisions. They're implemented through the marketing mix. Here we've got our, have we got the marketing mix here? Yeah, called the 4 Ps of marketing. We'd call it the marketing mix instead. Here we've got Toyota's marketing mix. So you can see here all of these posters are including these decisions around the marketing mix, because that's about, and that will be driven by their understanding of the target customer and the trends in the market. So what do they want? So within the marketing mix, you've got product, price, place, and promotion. Okay, they're the 4 original Ps. It then expanded because a lot of products have got a service element to people, processes, and physical evidence, especially if it's a pure product, a pure service rather, that we tend to have some evidence that supports our decision making. So we've got those that we consider, and they're key strategic decisions. But in addition to those, things that we've covered on this course and through the contents include branding. Now, branding and brand decisions plays a huge role in terms of perceptual map and positioning. So that's fabulous. But we've got to see, where does it fit? And actually, branding fits within product on the marketing mix. Communications, I've abbreviated it here to comms. So communications comes under promotion on the marketing mix. And communications could be to safeguard clients, so it could be about building loyalty with existing clients. It's not just about creating new client relationships, it can also be about fostering existing relationships and about increasing a lifetime value with those clients. And then the final thing that I've mentioned from the sort of learning outcomes and the contents that we've covered on the course is about the value proposition. So this is the exchange, and this is about the customer value. That again tends to fit in the product. So it fits in the product. It may come through the brand, but it could actually, the added value could come through other elements of the marketing mix. It could come through the way that it's distributed. So it could be a digital download, and that's part of the value that's offered. So it could be through other elements, but we've got to consider, how is your organisation achieving that value exchange, and what data do you have to support it? Now, this year's assignment, or the one that you're looking at, critically evaluating the key benefits of data analytic in the chosen organisation. Data analytics, we've got to try and find as much as we can, or if we can't find it, we need to try and work out what would be helpful, so that all these decisions that we're talking about, they're driven by understanding the data. We need to look at historic data. So what does that tell us about historically where people have been buying, what they're doing, how they're responding, but also the current and future looking data. What is that telling us in terms of a big picture of trends that are happening, how we need to be dynamic and change? Does our customer value proposition need to change? So in terms of this, let's just do a little bit more in-depth analysis of what we could be looking for on each of the elements if we were going to use SOSTAC as an example. So SOSTAC starts off with the situation analysis. As I mentioned before, I would be really keen to understand the marketing exchange. So in terms of the data, we could have hard facts and figures that are through statistical databases, but also we could look at perceptions in terms of the marketing exchange. So actually we're looking at customer reviews, we're looking at sentiment analysis so that people are feeling that the exchange is that in 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 exchange for the price paid, the inconvenience of buying from this store, the fact it's a premium price, the fact we have to wait a bit longer, the exchange that we get in return, so what we get back is actually a superior level of service. We get we know that it's a trusted brand, and we look at all these sorts of psychological as well as a high quality service or product. So we're looking at the exchange from not just a rational exchange that it's X product for X money, we're looking at the psychological benefits as well. And how can data inform those? What data is available to inform them? And then the other key part of this, which should be really there should be data available, and it's a case of where to look and what we can find and its relevance. We need to analyse the environment externally and internally. So what specialist database can we use to inform our SWOT? So our SWOT is our strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats. Our opportunities and threats are external, so they link in with our PESTLE, so political, economic, social, technological, legal and environmental. And actually there we are looking for key data to inform that so that we are not doing it on a hunch, we're doing it at looking at trends. But how do we then tie this back in terms of our marketing decisions? How do we use it to shape what we're doing going forwards? So actually it needs to then connect with the decision making from a marketing perspective. It won't just connect with decision making, it will also give us a really good feel to what should our objectives be. So based on a historic situation of X, Y, and Z, which we've picked up from our data analytics, because we've got those and they're well set up within the organisation, actually there are these contextual changes in the environments. So if we carry on doing what we've always done, the chances are our market may be shrinking because we've found that the certain trends are taking place. However, we might find that there are certain opportunities from the opportunities and threats in the pestle that we're looking at that mean if we change direction, we could scope up our objectives in terms of increasing our potential sales or diversifying in terms of what we're offering. So our objectives sometimes, the organisational objectives might be quite difficult to find, but for a public listed company, they may share certain of their higher level goals and their future trajectory and ideas on their financial reports, which they share with shareholders, which they share publicly, but are really intended for shareholders. So we've looked at the bigger picture to start off with. We've considered what's going on in the environment, internal and external. We've considered what people are currently buying from them and how the exchange is taking place, how they're rationally and emotionally perceived. Then we're going to move on to setting objectives, and do these need to be different? And how are they informed from the data analytics that we've got? We then decide, we don't decide, we then analyse who we're working with. So how are we going to group our customers together? That's our strategy, and profile them. Which ones of those profiles are we going to use as our target customers? Because then we can be rational about smart with the budget that we've got, our resources available. If we're trying to be everything to everyone, that is not going to work. That's not going to give us the best advantage. So we need to be really clear on our segmentation strategy. But again, supported by data analytics, because we could find out if we're going for a certain age dimension as one of the criteria, how many people are they meeting that age? If we're looking for a certain economic boundary, how many people are within that? So we can consider when we're building our profile, the data around is our segment, our chosen segment, our target, in fact, is it sufficient, and do they have the means to engage with our brand in the way that we want them to? So strategy is key because it's about validating that we are choosing the right people to go for. So once we've decided that, we then need to position ourselves. So we need to be, positioning means you need to be attractive. You need to set your stall out and be a company that they want to work with. So we do this by marketing, strategic marketing decisions through our marketing mix. So that's where, again, we're considering product place, price, promotion, processes, people, and physical evidence. So how are we going to do that with our segment in mind? But we also need to consider, does the brand appeal to them? Is that going to put them off? Is it going to, and what does our brand actually stand for anyway? So if our brand has certain values, do they need to be changed? And actually, what is the value they see, our value proposition in dealing with our brand? So are we meeting our target audience's needs? Are we appealing to them? Are we in a strong position to engage with them? So we then consider, okay, so we've got, this is a logical flow. It starts off from the environment, it moves on to the objectives. Are they realistic? We're then considering, okay, so given what we've got, given what's going on, who are we going after? So that's our segments and our target. Then what's going to appeal to them? So we're creating the marketing mix, a brand and a value proposition that's really on point for our target audience. But we're using data at every point to fuel this. And then our actions are who's going to do it. Because actually, in terms of responsibility, have we got the resource internally to run this marketing activity? We may do, or we may have done historically, but if we've decided we're going to change direction here, actually what we might decide is we need a specialist agency that's good, it's got a profile in digital disruption, for example, if we're going for a very different type of target audience or launching a new offering. So sometimes it might be worth going externally to buy in some expertise or to change the nature of what we're doing, because it's likely if we're using our internal members of staff, we might, well, again, we might recruit new people who've got different experience, but we're likely to get what we've always got. So if we need to change that, that's where we might look externally in terms of our actions. And then our control measures tie back to our objectives. Have we met the increased sales? What's likely to be different? How are we going to measure things? What data do we need in order to check that we have met our objectives? So it goes full circle. And then the idea with this is so it continues. So we go back to our situation analysis, we continue to consider our environmental analysis, what's going on externally, internally, and it's this iterative loop that continues to inform our marketing strategic decisions to make sure that they're really on track with what we need. So here, what I've tried to do in this section here is to very briefly give you an overview of the marketing elements that you may consider when you're considering the data analytics, because actually they do fit well together, because the idea is the marketing models, frameworks, theories are informed by that data analytics in that organisation. So actually put the two together and you can come up with some really well-informed decisions. I suppose that the difficulty might be in terms of future data and market changes, and actually, was anyone ever going to predict the pandemic in terms of like how that's changed consumer behaviours? I think as soon as it started happening, there was some very good analysis in terms of how it might continue, but there's always been this debate. Have businesses, are they going to go back to normal? Is people's behaviour going to revert to a particular way? Or have, with successive lockdowns, has it got to a point where it's changed forever? In which case, how is it changed? And do we have the data to support that change and make the right decisions to serve our new marketplace, actually, our new reality? So this leads nicely onto these three additional questions that you're going to be considering. So there's 4 of you in your group and there's 3 questions. So that obviously presents a little bit of a challenge in terms of how you're going to divide it up in researching and presenting them, but a challenge for you to take on and work out how to do this. So you potentially have used one of these marketing frameworks to critique not only the data they have available, but actually what they've done. So it's very good once you've done all this analysis for you to consider, have they missed anything? Do you think there is a marketing opportunity that could have really helped grow the organisation or could still do going forwards? Given your market analysis, given what's going on, do you feel the current way they're doing things is going to be fit for purpose in the future, or are they going to need to change that? And then the final one, have they missed? Is there another market that you feel, a segment, so you'd need to profile it, that they should go for? And actually, why should they go for it? So show us using data and analytics what they should do moving forwards. In terms of the sources that we'd like you to use, theories and frameworks, which I've recapped verbally, although not on the slides. So I've given you some idea of how they all connect together. So use those to underpin your knowledge and your application. Then the application needs to come through looking at their annual reports, so they should be publicly available, and then looking at some of these databases through the market reports. But also other wider industry associations. So there are a number of governing bodies for industry bodies that you could look at and see what's publicly available. Also consider the specialist press. What is that telling us? The news about the particular industry that you're looking at. Because that might give some more cutting edge than academics would, because academics are producing papers that are then peer reviewed to give us a certain level of credibility and authority. However, that delays things. So actually, market news and industry thought leaders don't necessarily have to go through the same levels of approval and the same time consuming process. However, they may not be as credible. So there's trade-offs with everything. But what we're encouraging you to do is to look at a variety of sources, including the specialist databases that you've been introduced to consider everything that's going on and how are they within the environment, but also how are they performing within that environment and what's the future looking like for them. And then you might also consider like what their strategy is, but how they're actually delivering. So you might consider some reviews from customers in terms of their reputation, the awards they've got, or maybe the opposite, some of the criticisms they've received. You do need to be critical because these sources aren't academic, they can be very biased, but they may give us an insight in terms of what is genuinely, in terms of the marketing exchange, what's really going on, what people are really thinking and feeling about what they're offering. So when you're looking at the poster, we've seen some really good examples and we've seen smart art works really well, use images. Obviously, otherwise, if you're not careful, it's all textual and actually you are going to present verbally. So the words, they're coming from you. Can we use graphs appropriately? Can we use figures on there? So make it as visual as possible. And a logical way of navigating through the contents as well, because you'll have seen, I think in Tesla's, I really liked the structure, but I found it a little bit difficult then to follow in terms of which sections came first. So we need to make it a sort of a visual aid that you're talking through. We do want you to look at the literature. We really need you to identify and critique theories relating to your organisation and the issue of data analytics and the benefits it offers. You need to show that you understand and you apply and you can practice the sort of what you've learned in terms of doing this with your organisation. And that's why we ask you to do a practical application, so practical examples that will demonstrate the application of theory and practice and show your level of understanding. Please use Harvard referencing. You've obviously got a Harvard referencing list at the end, but I'd encourage you to use insight referencing, so actually reference in the body of the poster, because that signposts and shows us how much work you've done in finding these fabulously credible sources. When you record it, there are a number of different tools, and you've already had a seminar talking you through the ways in which you can create your poster. So that's key. But there's also there's a number of visual tools that you can use to create your poster, and then you need to do a video presentation. We need to see your face, and that's really important so we can give you a mark for your body language. I've used Screencast-O-Matic for this one, but there are so many others. We're not being prescriptive. Find what you need. Find not what you need. Find one that you feel comfortable using, but use it consistently amongst your group to use to create your videos. Dress appropriately, make an effort, put a smart outfit on. It's only for a few minutes, but it creates such a different impression. What it does is psychologically shows us as your markers that you care, that you're invested in this course, and everybody, all four of you, must present. So you can't carry anyone, all of you need to present for this presentation. So you're going to submit, there'll be a submission link, you post a presentation. You need to submit that with a link to your video, okay? And you also need to submit your group diaries so we can just double check the contributions that you've all made to this project and working together. We will give you a feedback template. You've got 4 marking criteria that I've mentioned earlier, and we will provide that to you on the 17th, by the 17th of May at the latest. So you'll be able to get your feedback, and it will be written down and it will be on Moodle. And what I thought would just be a nice way to conclude the session is just to signpost the sort of contents where you can find what to support you with this putting together your poster presentation. So the first 2 weeks are all about data and helping you understand the types of data available. We're then moving on to the marketing side. So this is the things that I'm covering. I think the strategic marketing framework in week 3 is really helpful, and we want to understand your profile of a target customer, or their profile, from the data that you can find. Is it the right one? Then you're looking externally. So we're going to go at the marketing environment, and I want you to look internally as well at their objectives. And we're looking at how they're creating a customer value proposition. So that's covered in week 4. The marketing mix and brand position, these are their strategic marketing decisions. And actually as well, we need to consider in there their communications, which is part of the marketing mix under promotion. You're going to be introduced in week 6 to specialist databases, and that is certainly going to help in terms of populating your presentation and giving you some really good evidence. And then the talk part of the contents of this course is wrapped up in week 7 in terms of the data strategies, so how data analytics helps inform decision making. So it's all wrapped up very nicely and connects with your first assignment. So this leads me to a point to wish you all the very best in this presentation, in your first assessment with us. And yeah, please participate in the one-to-ones this week in order to get additional support on your first submission.